I woke up abruptly to the sound of a piercing scream, my heart racing and my palms clammy against the sheets. The darkness of my room felt thicker than usual, closing in around me. I sat up, blinking against the dim light filtering through my curtains. What had I heard? The echo of that scream lingered in my ears, sending chills down my spine. I swung my legs over the edge of the bed, my bare feet touching the cold floor. I could hear the quiet hum of the night outside, the soft rustle of leaves brushing against the window. But there was no one there. I crept to the window, pulling back the curtain to peer into the darkness. The street was empty, the houses around me standing in silence like sentinels guarding their secrets. Maybe it was just a dream, I whispered to myself, trying to shake off the fear that clung to me like a heavy fog. But as I lay back down, sleep eluded me. I tossed and turned, replaying the scream in my mind. Felt too real, too urgent. The next morning, the sun shone brightly, as if the night's terrors had been a figment of my imagination. I got ready for school, but the image of Jake lingered in my mind. He was my best friend, my confidant. We had shared countless laughs, secrets, and dreams. But today, something felt off. I couldn't shake the feeling that something terrible had happened. As I walked into school, the chatter of my classmates filled the air. But I felt disconnected, as if I was watching everything unfold from a distance. Ryan and Lily approached me, their faces etched with concern. "Hey, Sarah, have you seen Jake?" Ryan asked, his brow furrowed. I shook my head, my stomach twisting with unease. "No, I haven't. I thought he'd be here by now." Lily glanced around the bustling hallway, her expression anxious. "It's not like him to skip school. He always texts us if he's not coming. Maybe he's just running late," I suggested, trying to convince myself as much as them. But the pit in my stomach deepened. The day dragged on, each class feeling interminable. I tried to focus, but my mind kept drifting back to Jake. I remembered the last time we had hung out, laughing over silly inside jokes and making plans for the weekend. We had promised to always be there for each other, no matter what. But now, the promise felt empty, like a whisper lost in the wind. At lunch, as I picked at my food, Ryan and Lily exchanged worried glances. "Sarah, we need to do something," Lily finally said, her voice low. "We can't just sit here and wait. What if something happened to Jake?" Ryan nodded in agreement. "Let's investigate. We can start by going to his house after school." I looked at them, my heart racing at the thought of searching for Jake. "You really think something's wrong?" "Yeah, I have a bad feeling about this," Ryan admitted, his tone serious. "Okay," I agreed, feeling a mix of dread and determination. "Let's do it." After school, the three of us walked to Jake's house, the air thick with tension. As we approached, I noticed that the front door was slightly ajar. My heart skipped a beat. "Jake!" I called out, my voice shaky. There was no response. We exchanged worried glances before stepping inside. The living room was in disarray. Cushions were knocked off the couch, and papers were scattered across the floor. It looked like a struggle had taken place. "Jake!" I shouted, panic rising in my chest. "Over here," Ryan called, peering down the hallway. I rushed to his side, my heart pounding as we moved deeper into the house. We searched every room, calling Jake's name, but there was no sign of him. I felt a growing sense of dread as I glanced around, my eyes landing on a small, dark corner of the living room. Something caught my eye, an old, dusty journal half hidden beneath the floorboards. "Look at this," I exclaimed, pulling it out with trembling hands. The cover was worn, and the pages were yellowed with age. "What is it?" Lily asked, stepping closer. "I don't know, but it looks important," I replied, my curiosity piqued. I flipped through the pages, my heart sinking as I read the scrawled handwriting. It spoke of strange occurrences in the neighborhood, disappearances, secrets, and a rivalry that seemed to stretch back decades. "Sarah, be careful," Ryan warned, glancing nervously around the room. "This is creepy." "I know, but we have to understand what's going on," I insisted. I couldn't shake the feeling that this journal might hold the key to finding Jake. Suddenly, a chill ran down my spine as I caught sight of something out of the corner of my eye. I turned, and there, in the window, was a shadowy figure. My heart raced as I squinted, trying to make sense of what I was seeing. "Did you see that?" I gasped, pointing towards the window. "What?" Lily asked, her brow furrowing in confusion. "The shadow. It was Jake," I stammered, feeling a mix of hope and fear. "Sarah, you're imagining things," Ryan said, his voice low. "No, I swear. It looked just like him." I insisted, my heart pounding in my chest. But when I moved closer to the window, the figure was gone. I pressed my hands against the glass, staring out into the darkness. "Jake, where are you?" I whispered, feeling tears prick at the corners of my eyes. "Maybe we should go," Lily suggested, her voice barely above a whisper. "Not yet," I replied, determination flooding my veins. "We can't leave until we figure this out. We owe it to Jake." We spent the next hour poring over the journal, piecing together the strange events documented within its pages. It spoke of feuds between families, lost loves, and a community that had buried its secrets deep. Each story seemed to resonate with the current tension in our neighborhood, and I couldn't shake the feeling that Jake had stumbled upon something he wasn't supposed to know. "Do you think this is why he disappeared?" Ryan asked, his voice thick with concern. "I don't know, but we have to find out," I replied, my voice firm. As we continued to read, the hairs on the back of my neck stood up. The air felt charged, heavy with the weight of the unknown. I couldn't help but feel like we were being watched, like the shadows in the room were alive, waiting for us to uncover their secrets. Lily suddenly shivered, wrapping her arms around herself. "I don't like this place. It feels wrong." "Yeah, but we can't leave without knowing what happened to Jake," I insisted, my resolve strengthening. Just then, I heard a noise coming from the back of the house, a soft creaking, like footsteps on the floorboard. My heart raced as I exchanged glances with Ryan and Lily. "Did you hear that?" I whispered, my voice shaking. "Let's check it out," Ryan suggested, his tone cautious but determined. We moved carefully down the hallway, each step echoing in the silence. I could feel the adrenaline coursing through my veins, a mix of fear and excitement. What if we found Jake? As we reached the end of the hallway, I paused, my breath catching in my throat. I felt a strange pull, as if something was beckoning me to open the door in front of us. "Are you ready?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. "Yeah," they both replied, though I could hear the uncertainty in their tones. I reached for the doorknob, my heart pounding as I turned it slowly. The door creaked open, revealing a dark room filled with forgotten memories and dust-covered furniture. "Jake?" I called out, my voice trembling with hope, but there was only silence. As we stepped inside, I felt an overwhelming sense of loss wash over me. This was Jake's sanctuary, a place filled with his dreams and secrets. The walls seemed to close in around us, and I felt the weight of our search pressing down on me. "Sarah, we should go," Lily urged, her eyes wide with fear. "No," I replied firmly. "Not until we find him." Just then, I noticed something glinting in the corner of the room, a small object half buried under a pile of old clothes. I knelt down, brushing the fabric aside to reveal a silver bracelet. "Jake's bracelet!" I exclaimed, recognizing it instantly. "Where did you find that?" Ryan asked, stepping closer. "It was under these clothes," I said, my heart racing. "He must have been here recently." But then, as I held the bracelet tightly, I felt a cold breeze sweep through the room, sending shivers down my spine. "This is too strange," Lily whispered, her voice shaking. I nodded, feeling the weight of our search pressing down on me. "We need to keep looking." As I stood up, I caught sight of something else. A photo frame lying on the floor, cracked and dusty. I picked it up, and my breath caught in my throat. It was a picture of Jake with a group of friends, all of us smiling, and I woke up with a start, my heart racing as the echoes of a blood-curdling scream filled my ears. The darkness of my room wrapped around me like a heavy blanket, and I quickly glanced around, searching for the source of the sound. It was just past midnight, and the only light came from the street lamp outside my window, casting eerie shadows on the walls. I rubbed my eyes, trying to shake off the remnants of sleep, but the chilling scream lingered in my mind like a ghost refusing to leave. Was it just a dream? I whispered to myself, sitting up in bed. I strained to listen, but all I could hear was the distant rustle of leaves in the wind. I took a deep breath, convincing myself that it was just my imagination playing tricks on me. Yet, a sense of dread settled in my stomach as I lay back down, staring at the ceiling, the weight of something ominous pressing down on me. The following morning, the sun shone brightly, but the warmth did little to ease the chill that clung to my bones. I got ready for school with a sense of foreboding gnawing at me. Jake was supposed to meet me at the bus stop, but when I arrived, he was nowhere to be found. I pulled out my phone, but there were no messages from him. My heart sank as I walked into school, searching for his familiar face. "Hey, Sarah," Ryan called out, waving from across the hallway. "Have you seen Jake?" I shook my head, my stomach twisting in knots. "No, I thought he would be here by now." Lily joined us, her brow furrowing in concern. He didn't respond to my texts either. It's not like him to just disappear. As the day wore on, anxiety spread like wildfire through the school. Whispers and rumors filled the air, each one more outlandish than the last. I found it hard to concentrate in class. My thoughts kept drifting back to the scream from last night and the growing worry that something was terribly wrong. During lunch, Ryan and Lily found me sitting alone at our usual table, my uneaten sandwich lying forgotten in front of me. "We need to do something," Ryan said, determination in his voice. "Jake wouldn't just leave without telling us." "I know," I replied, my heart aching at the thought of his absence. "What if something happened to him?" Lily leaned closer, her voice barely above a whisper. "We should investigate. There must be something we can find out." With that, a sense of purpose ignited within me. We agreed to meet at Jake's house after school, and as the final bell rang, I felt a mix of hope and dread swirling inside me. The thought of digging deeper into the mystery of Jake's disappearance was terrifying, but we couldn't just sit idly by. When we arrived at Jake's house, the atmosphere felt heavy. The door hung ajar, creaking slightly as Ryan pushed it open. "Jake?" he called out, but there was no response. The interior was dark, and the air felt thick and stale, as if time had stopped in this space. I stepped inside, my heart pounding in my chest. "Look at this place," Lily said, her voice echoing off the walls. "It's a mess." The living room was in disarray. Cushions were scattered, and the coffee table was overturned. I felt a shiver run down my spine. "Something isn't right," I murmured, glancing at my friends. "We need to find out what happened." As we searched the house, I couldn't shake the feeling that we were intruding on something deeply personal. I moved into Jake's bedroom, where the familiar scent of his cologne still lingered. My eyes scanned the room, landing on the desk cluttered with books and papers. That's when I noticed a small corner of aged paper sticking out from under the floorboards. "Guys, over here," I called, kneeling down to pull the diary out. The cover was worn, and the pages were yellowed with time. "What is this?" Ryan and Lily crowded around me as I opened the diary carefully. The first few pages were filled with neat handwriting, but as I flipped through, I found scrawled notes about strange occurrences in the neighborhood. Things like inexplicable noises at night and sightings of shadowy figures lurking in the dark. My heart raced as I read about events that seemed to parallel Jake's disappearance. "Look at this," I said, pointing to an entry. "It talks about a family feud that happened decades ago. There were whispers of betrayal and revenge." "What do you mean?" Lily asked, leaning in closer to read. I continued, "It seems like the history of this neighborhood is filled with darkness. Jake must have known something about it." As I read further, I began to feel a connection to the stories being told. There were mentions of our families, intertwined in ways I never knew. It hit me that the rivalries and grudges from the past were not just tales to scare children. They were deeply rooted in our community. Suddenly, a chill swept through the room, and I froze as I caught a glimpse of movement outside the window. My pulse quickened when I saw a shadow. Was that Jake? I rushed to the window, my heart pounding, but all I saw was the darkness of the evening creeping in. "Did you see that?" I exclaimed, my voice trembling. "What?" Ryan asked, confused. "I thought I saw Jake outside," I stammered, feeling a wave of frustration wash over me. "It's like he's trying to communicate with us." "Maybe we should keep looking," Lily suggested, her eyes searching the room. We continued to flip through the diary, finding more tales of heartbreak and deception. The stories were haunting, painting a picture of a neighborhood steeped in secrets. Each entry felt like a thread leading us deeper into a web of connections that span generations. "This is insane," Ryan said, shaking his head. "How could we not know about any of this?" "I don't know," I replied, feeling a mix of anger and betrayal. "But we need to understand it. It might be the key to finding Jake." As we pieced together the stories, I could sense a growing urgency. The shadow I had seen outside felt like a reminder that Jake was out there, somewhere, waiting for us to uncover the truth. I looked up from the diary, my heart heavy with the weight of our discovery. "We have to find out more about this feud. It's like it's all connected." Ryan nodded, determination in his eyes. "Let's confront the neighbors. They must know something." Lily glanced at the diary, then back at us, her expression conflicted. "But what if they don't want to talk? What if they're hiding something?" "Then we push harder," I said firmly. "We owe it to Jake to get to the bottom of this." As we left Jake's house, I could feel the weight of the diary in my hands, a tangible connection to a past that was slowly coming to light. The night was dark, and the uncertainty loomed ahead of us like a storm. But in my heart, I felt a flicker of hope. We were on the right path, and I wouldn't stop until I found Jake and uncovered the secrets that had been buried for too long. I woke up to the sound of a piercing scream cutting through the stillness of the night. My heart raced as I shot up in bed, my mind racing with thoughts of terror. I glanced out the window expecting to see something, anything that could explain the noise. But all I saw was the thick blanket of darkness enveloping our quiet neighborhood. The moon cast a silver glow on the trees, their branches swaying gently in the night breeze. There was nothing out of the ordinary, nothing that would indicate the horror that had just echoed in my ears. The next morning, however, my world turned upside down. At school, the news spread like wildfire. Jake was missing. He had vanished without a trace, leaving behind no clues, no signs of struggle, and no reason for anyone to believe he would simply leave. I felt a pit in my stomach as I processed the news. Jake was my best friend, my confidant. We had shared so many memories together, from late-night study sessions to our countless promises to always be there for each other. As I sat in class, the teacher's voice became a distant hum. My mind was consumed with thoughts of Jake. What could have happened to him? I couldn't shake the feeling that something sinister was at play, lurking beneath the surface of our seemingly idyllic lives. I remembered the last time I saw him, his smile bright and carefree, as we joked about our plans for the weekend. Now, that image felt like a ghost haunting me. During lunch, Ryan and Lily found me sitting alone at our usual table. They exchanged worried glances before Ryan broke the silence. "Sarah, we have to do something. We can't just sit here and wait for news," he said with determination etched on his face. Lily nodded in agreement. "We need to investigate. There has to be something we can uncover that will help us find him." Their words ignited a spark within me, a flicker of hope amidst the dread. "You're right. We can't just give up on him. Let's start by looking into his house. Maybe there's something there that could give us a clue." With a plan in place, we made our way to Jake's house that afternoon. My heart pounded in my chest as we approached the front door, which stood slightly ajar. A chill ran down my spine as we stepped inside, the air thick with the scent of dust and neglect. The house felt empty, hollow, as if Jake's presence had been erased from its very walls. "Jake!" I called out hesitantly, my voice echoing in the silence. No response, only an unsettling stillness. Ryan stepped forward, his brow furrowed as he surveyed the disarray around us. It looks like a tornado hit this place. Why would he leave it like this? Lily picked up a discarded piece of paper from the floor. Maybe he didn't leave willingly, she said softly, her voice barely above a whisper. I couldn't shake the feeling of dread that settled over me as we moved deeper into the house. Every corner we turned seemed to amplify our unease. The living room was a mess, cushions thrown about and books scattered on the floor. The atmosphere was heavy, a tangible weight that pressed down on us. Let's check his room, I suggested, my voice trembling slightly. We climbed the stairs, each creak of the floorboards sending shivers down my spine. When we reached Jake's room, I hesitated before pushing the door open. Inside, the chaos mirrored the rest of the house. Clothes were strewn across the floor, and his bed was unmade, as if he had left in a hurry. I felt a pang of sorrow at the sight. This was not the Jake I knew. He was always so meticulous, so organized. Help me look for anything unusual, I said, my heart racing. We began rummaging through his belongings, searching for anything that might give us a clue about his disappearance. As I dug through a pile of clothes, my fingers brushed against something hard beneath the fabric. I pulled it out, revealing a small, weathered box. My heart skipped a beat as I opened it, revealing a collection of old photographs and letters. Look at this, I exclaimed, holding up a faded picture of Jake and a group of friends, all smiling and carefree. But my excitement quickly faded as I noticed something. One of the boys in the photo bore a striking resemblance to a mysterious figure I had seen lurking around our neighborhood lately. What is it? Ryan asked, peering over my shoulder. This guy. I've seen him around. I don't know who he is, but he gives me a bad feeling, I admitted, my voice trembling. Lily leaned closer, examining the photo. Maybe he knows something about Jake. We should try to find him. Just then, a noise from outside caught my attention. My heart raced as I turned to look out the window. I thought I saw a shadow flitting past, but when I focused, there was nothing there. I don't like this, I said, my voice shaking. We need to figure out what's going on. We can't let Jake down. As we continued to search the room, I couldn't shake the sense of unease settling in my chest. I had always believed that friendships could withstand anything, but now, facing the possibility of losing Jake, I felt the cracks forming in our group. Later that week, Ryan and I met at our favorite cafe, both of us needing a break from the heavy atmosphere that surrounded the investigation. I could see the weariness etched in his features. Sarah, can we talk? Ryan asked, his tone serious. Of course, what's on your mind? I replied, concerned about the look on his face. He sighed, running a hand through his hair. It's just, my parents are really pushing me to focus on my future. They want me to pursue a career in medicine, but it's not what I want. I feel like I'm suffocating under their expectations. I could see the frustration and helplessness in his eyes. Ryan, you have to do what makes you happy. This investigation is important to us, but you can't let their demands control your life. He nodded, but I could tell he was struggling. I know, but with everything going on with Jake, it's hard to think about anything else. I feel like I'm letting everyone down. You're not letting anyone down, I reassured him. We're in this together. We just need to focus on finding Jake, and then we can tackle everything else. But as we discussed our feelings, I felt a growing distance between us. The weight of Jake's disappearance was becoming too much to bear, and I worried that our friendship was fraying at the edges. Meanwhile, Lily was becoming increasingly distant. I noticed her sneaking glances at a boy who had been watching us from a distance. She would blush whenever he caught her eye, and my heart sank at the realization that she was starting to pull away from us. Lily, what's going on with you and that guy? I asked one day, trying to mask my concern. She hesitated, biting her lip. His name is Ethan. He seems interesting. I don't know. There's just something about him. I frowned, a knot forming in my stomach. But do you even know him? What if he knows something about Jake? We can't afford to trust anyone right now. Lily looked defensive. I'm not saying I trust him completely, but he might have information. You know how I feel about Jake, Sarah. I just want to help. Then let's focus on what we can find out together. We can't let distractions pull us apart right now, I urged, feeling the tension between us rise. But as the days passed, it became harder to keep our group united. Ryan's frustrations with his parents continued to grow, and I could sense his need to break free from the pressure. Meanwhile, Lily's fascination with Ethan was causing her to drift away, leaving me feeling like I was shouldering the weight of the investigation alone. One afternoon, as we gathered to discuss our next steps, the atmosphere crackled with tension. "We need to stay focused," I insisted, trying to keep my voice steady. "Jake needs us." "I get that, but can't you see that we're all struggling?" Ryan shot back, his frustration bubbling to the surface. "You're acting like we can just ignore everything else that's happening in our lives." "Stop it, Ryan. We can't afford to fall apart now," I countered, my own anger flaring. "Jake wouldn't want that." Lily, caught in the middle, looked back and forth between us, her expression troubled. "Guys, we need to work together. I don't want to lose either of you over this." But as Ryan stormed off, leaving me and Lily standing there in silence, I felt the weight of our friendship shifting beneath us. We were all grappling with our own demons, and the investigation was becoming a battleground for our personal conflicts. I took a deep breath and tried to steady myself. "We can do this, Lily. We just have to stay strong. We owe it to Jake." But even as I spoke the words, I felt a gnawing sense of doubt creeping in. The shadows of our past were not only haunting Jake, they were starting to consume us as well. The sun barely peeked through the curtains as I awoke to the sound of a piercing scream that shattered the stillness of the night. My heart raced as I shot upright, my breath hitching in my throat. I rushed to the window, flinging it open and staring into the suffocating darkness that enveloped my neighborhood. Nothing. Just the quiet rustle of leaves and the distant croak of frogs in the stillness of the night. I strained my ears, but the world outside was silent once more, as if the scream had never happened. The next morning, the dread settled like a heavy blanket over my chest. I tried to shake off the feeling as I got ready for school, but the image of Jake, my best friend, lingered in my mind. Jake, who could always make me laugh even on the worst days. Jake, who had promised we'd always have each other's backs. I reached for my phone, hoping to see a message from him, but there was nothing, just the empty screen staring back at me, a cruel reminder of his absence. At school, the atmosphere was tense. Whispers floated around the halls, and the worried faces of our classmates mirrored my own anxiety. I spotted Ryan and Lily by our lockers, their expressions grave. "Have you heard?" Ryan asked, his voice barely above a whisper. "Jake's gone. No one knows where he is." I felt a chill crawl up my spine. "What do you mean gone? Like, missing?" My voice trembled as I spoke, disbelief clawing at my throat. "Yeah, his parents said he didn't come home last night," Lily added, her eyes wide with fear. "They thought he was at your place." I shook my head, panic rising within me. "No, I thought he was with you guys after the game. I didn't see him." All three of us fell silent, the weight of reality crashing down on us. What could have happened to him? The unanswered questions buzzed in my mind like a swarm of angry bees. "We need to find him," I declared, a sense of determination igniting within me. "We can't just sit here and do nothing." Ryan nodded, his resolve matching mine. "I'll help. We'll figure this out." Lily hesitated for a moment before she joined us with a hesitant smile. "Okay, let's search for clues. We can start at his house." As we made our way to Jake's home, a sense of dread settled over me. I had always felt safe in our neighborhood, but now it felt like the walls were closing in. When we arrived, my heart sank at the sight of the door slightly ajar. "Jake!" I called out, stepping cautiously inside. The air was thick with tension as we entered. The living room was a mess, cushions strewn across the floor, books toppled over, and a palpable sense of chaos hung in the air. "This isn't right," I whispered, my stomach churning. "It looks like there was a struggle." Ryan frowned, taking a step further into the room. "We need to look for anything that could help us. There has to be something here." As we started to search, I felt a cold shiver run down my spine. I moved to the kitchen, hoping to find something, anything that could explain what had happened. Just as I turned to call for Ryan and Lily, I caught a glimpse of something shiny under the edge of the countertop. I knelt down, brushing aside the dust to reveal a small, metallic object. It was a keychain, one that Jake always had on his backpack. "Guys, look!" I exclaimed, holding it up. "This is definitely Jake's." Ryan and Lily rushed over, their expressions shifting from worry to hope. "It means he was here," Lily said, her voice trembling. "But what does it mean?" I clenched the keychain tightly in my hand, frustration boiling within me. "It means we have to dig deeper. We can't give up on him." After a few more minutes of searching, I noticed an odd draft coming from a corner of the room. I moved closer, my curiosity piqued. Beneath the floorboards, I could see a corner of something peeking out. "What is this?" I murmured to myself as I knelt down to pull it free. To my surprise, it was an old, worn diary. Its cover was cracked, and I felt a thrill of excitement as I realized it could contain answers. I opened it cautiously, the pages yellowed with age. The words scrawled across the pages told of strange occurrences in the neighborhood, events that sent chills down my spine. As I read on, I found entries detailing betrayals, secrets, and rivalries that seemed to stretch back generations, intertwining with the histories of our families. "Sarah, what did you find?" Ryan's voice pulled me from my thoughts. I looked up, my heart racing. "It's a diary. It talks about things that happened here. Dark things. I think it's connected to Jake somehow." Lily leaned in closer to catch a glimpse. "What do you mean?" "There are stories about families feuding, betrayals that led to horrible outcomes. It's like a web of secrets," I explained, flipping through the pages. "And it mentions something about a tragedy that struck the neighborhood years ago." As I read further, I felt a knot tighten in my stomach. The entry spoke of a love that had gone unfulfilled, a passion that had spiraled into revenge and sorrow. It was a story that mirrored the tension I felt in our own friendships, and I couldn't shake the feeling that it was all connected to Jake's disappearance. Suddenly, I glanced toward the window, a sense of unease washing over me. There, in the dim light, I thought I saw a flicker of movement outside. My heart skipped a beat as I squinted, trying to make sense of what I was seeing. It was a shadow, tall and indistinct, moving away from the house. "Did you see that?" I gasped, my voice barely above a whisper. "What?" Ryan asked, turning to look where I was pointing. "The shadow, it looked like Jake," I said, my voice shaking. I felt a rush of confusion and fear. "I have to go after him." But as I rushed to the door, the figure vanished into the darkness, leaving only the echo of my pounding heart in my ears. It felt as if the air had thickened around me, and I stood frozen, uncertainty flooding my mind. What could it mean? Was it truly Jake, or just a trick of the light? "Sarah, wait!" Lily called, but I was already out the door, desperation driving me forward. The night was closing in, but I felt a pull, a connection to Jake that I couldn't ignore. I had to uncover the truth, not just for him, but for all of us. "Let's split up," I shouted back to them, urgency lacing my words. "We'll cover more ground that way. We can't let this mystery consume us." As I navigated through the shadowy streets, the whispers of the past tangled with my thoughts. The secrets of our neighborhood were vast and murky, and I felt compelled to unravel them. But at what cost? The weight of uncertainty hung heavily on my shoulders, and I couldn't shake the feeling that the answers lay buried in the shadows, waiting for someone brave enough to uncover them. In that moment, I made a silent promise to Jake, to my friends, and to myself. I would find him. I would uncover the truth, no matter how deep the shadows ran. As shadows of the past loomed large as I lay in bed, the echoes of a distant scream still ringing in my ears. It was a shrill cry that shattered the stillness of the night, pulling me from the depths of sleep. I bolted upright, my heart racing, and rushed to the window, throwing it open to let the cool night air in. But all I could see was darkness, an inky void that seemed to swallow everything, leaving no trace of what might have caused such terror. The next morning, the sun rose, casting a pale light over the town, but it couldn't chase away the dread that hung in the air. As I got ready for school, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was horribly wrong. My mind raced with thoughts of Jake. He was supposed to be there, laughing, joking, as he always did. But when I arrived at school, the whispers swirled around me like a storm. Jake had disappeared. "Have you seen Jake?" I asked Ryan as we walked to our lockers, my voice barely above a whisper. He shook his head, his brow furrowing in concern. "No one has. It's like he just vanished." I felt a knot tighten in my stomach. The thought of him, my best friend, missing felt surreal, like a nightmare I couldn't wake up from. Memories flooded my mind. The way he would crack jokes that always made me laugh, the promises we made to always stick together no matter what. The weight of that promise felt heavier now, as if the very air around us grew thicker with uncertainty. Lily joined us, her eyes wide with worry. "I heard his mom is freaking out. They didn't even find his phone at home." A chill ran down my spine. "We need to find him," I said, determination overtaking my fear. "We can't just sit here and do nothing." Ryan nodded, his expression serious. "You're right. Let's investigate. We owe it to him." The three of us formed a plan, our desperation to find Jake fueling our resolve. We decided to head to his house after school, hoping to uncover something, anything, that could lead us to him. As we made our way there, the atmosphere thickened with unease. The streets felt different, almost suffocating, as if the very air was holding its breath. When we reached Jake's house, my heart sank. The front door stood ajar, swinging slightly in the breeze. A sense of foreboding washed over me as we stepped inside. The living room was in disarray. Cushions scattered, bookshelves in disarray, as if a storm had blown through. Felt wrong, like a violation of something sacred. "Jake!" I called out, my voice echoing through the empty space. No answer. We began to search, moving cautiously through the house. I felt a creeping sensation, as if we were intruding on something we shouldn't. "What happened here?" I muttered, glancing at Ryan and Lily. "I don't know," Ryan replied, his tone heavy with worry. "But it doesn't look good." As we sifted through the chaos, a glimmer caught my eye beneath the floorboards. I knelt down, brushing away the dust, and pulled out a worn leather diary. The cover was cracked, the pages yellowed with age. My heart raced as I opened it, revealing pages filled with frantic handwriting and strange sketches. "What is that?" Lily asked, leaning over my shoulder. "I think it's Jake's diary," I said, flipping through the pages. The entries spoke of strange occurrences in the neighborhood, stories of betrayal and vengeance that stretched back decades. As I read, I felt a chill creep over me. The rivalries described weren't just stories. They were intertwined with our families, our histories. Suddenly, a movement caught my eye outside the window. I turned just in time to see a shadow dart past. My heart thudded in my chest. "Did you guys see that?" I whispered, my voice trembling. "What?" Ryan asked, glancing toward the window. "There was something," I insisted, but when I looked again, there was only the creeping darkness of dusk settling in. "Sarah, focus," Lily said, her voice steady. "We need to figure out what's going on. This diary could hold the answers." I nodded, pushing my fear aside. We needed to delve deeper. As we continued to search, I felt the weight of the past pressing down on me, intertwining with the urgency of the present. A sudden noise made me jump, and I dropped the diary. It landed with a thud, opening to a page that caught my eye. It described a confrontation between families, a feud that had left scars in the community. My heart raced as I realized how relevant it was to us. "Look at this," I said, pointing to the entry. "This isn't just about Jake. It's about all of us." But before we could discuss it further, Ryan's phone buzzed. He pulled it out, his face paling as he read a message. "It's from Jake's mom. She's asking for anyone who knows anything about Jake to come to their house." I exchanged glances with Lily. "We can't just leave it like this," I said, my voice rising. "We need to find out what happened." "I know," Ryan said, his expression torn. "But we also can't ignore his mom. She's worried sick." "Let's go," Lily suggested, her voice firm. "We can't leave Jake's family in the dark, but we'll come back, right? We have to figure this out." We reluctantly made our way to Jake's house, the weight of unanswered questions hanging heavily in the air. As we approached, I couldn't shake the feeling that we were being watched. The shadows seemed to stretch and twist, whispering secrets I couldn't quite hear. When we arrived, Jake's mom was waiting at the door, her eyes red and puffy from crying. "Thank you for coming," she said, her voice shaky. I don't know what to do." We stepped inside, the atmosphere thick with despair. I felt a surge of empathy for her. How could we offer comfort when we were just as lost? As she recounted the last time she'd seen Jake, my heart ached for her. She spoke of his laughter, his dreams, and the plans he had for the future. It was a stark reminder of what was at stake. After a long and heart-wrenching conversation, we promised to help her search for Jake. As we left, the weight of our promise hung over us like a dark cloud. The shadows of the past were closing in, and I felt the urgency to uncover the truth before it consumed us all. "Let's meet at my house later," I suggested. "We can go over everything we found in the diary." Ryan and Lily nodded, determination igniting in their eyes. I could see it in their faces. We were in this together, bound by friendship, fear, and the need to find Jake. But as I turned to leave, I caught a glimpse of movement out of the corner of my eye. I spun around, but there was nothing there, just the lingering sense that something was amiss. That night, as I lay in bed, I couldn't shake the feeling that we were being pulled into something much larger than ourselves. The shadows whispered secrets, and I knew we had to push forward, to unravel the threads of the past before it was too late. The weight of Jake's disappearance pressed on my chest, and I felt the urge to scream into the darkness, to demand that it reveal its secrets. But deep down, I knew that the answers wouldn't come easily. We would have to confront the shadows of our history, and I feared what we might uncover. As I drifted off to sleep, I felt a chill run down my spine, and for the first time, I began to wonder if we were truly prepared for the truth that lay ahead. The air in my room felt thick with unease as I turned the pages of the old diary I had found in Jake's house. The yellowed paper crinkled gently beneath my fingertips, and the ink, faded but legible, whispered secrets from a time long past. Each word felt like a ghostly echo, pulling me deeper into the mystery surrounding Jake's disappearance. I could almost hear his voice urging me to uncover the truth. "Sarah, are you okay?" Ryan's voice broke through my reverie, pulling me back to the present. I looked up, seeing the concern etched on his face. He had been pacing the room, glancing anxiously at the diary as if it held the key to Jake's fate. "Yeah, I'm fine," I lied, though my voice trembled slightly. I found something interesting." "Interesting how?" he asked, leaning closer, his curiosity piqued. "There are stories in here about our families," I replied, my heart racing as I thumbed through the pages. Stories of betrayal, rivalry, things that have been buried for decades. Ryan frowned, rubbing the back of his neck. "You think this could be connected to Jake? To why he disappeared?" "I don't know," I admitted, the weight of uncertainty settling heavily on my shoulders. "But I can't shake the feeling that it is. There's something deeper here, something that links the past to what's happening now." "Maybe we should talk to the others," he suggested, his eyes darting toward the door. "Lily might have some insight." Just as he spoke, I heard a soft knock. It was Lily, her expression a mix of determination and worry. "What's going on in here?" she asked, stepping inside and glancing at the diary in my hands. "Sarah found some stuff about the neighborhood," Ryan explained. "We think it might help us understand what happened to Jake." Lily's eyebrows knitted together as she sat on the edge of my bed. "What kind of stuff?" I took a deep breath, feeling the weight of the secrets I was about to unveil. The diary mentions a lot about past events, things that happened between our families. It seems like there's a history of conflict that we never knew about. Lily's interest peaked. "Like what?" "Like betrayals, feuds, even disappearances," I said, my voice dropping to a whisper. "It's like a pattern repeating itself." "What do you mean?" she pressed, leaning forward. I pointed to a passage that detailed a confrontation between two families. Look at this. It talks about how a feud started over a broken promise of love. It ended in tragedy, and people went missing after that. That's unsettling, Ryan murmured, his face pale. Unsettling doesn't even begin to cover it, I replied, my heart racing. What if Jake found out about something similar? What if he was trying to uncover the truth about our families? Lily frowned, uncertainty swirling in her eyes. But why would he put himself in danger? Why not come to us? Maybe he didn't have a choice, I suggested, my mind racing. What if whoever is involved is threatening him? What if he was trying to protect us? The silence that followed was heavy, each of us lost in our thoughts. I could feel the shadows creeping in, the weight of the unknown pressing down on us. Suddenly, Ryan stood up, his face resolute. We need to find out more about this. We can't let Jake's disappearance go unanswered. I agree, Lily added, her voice firm. But where do we start? We should talk to the older neighbors, I suggested, recalling the conversations we had overheard. They might know something about the past. Ryan nodded. Good idea. They seemed to hold the key to these secrets. As we prepared to leave, a chill ran down my spine. What if they don't want to talk? What if they're afraid? Then we'll have to find a way to make them talk, Ryan replied, determination in his eyes. The sun was setting as we made our way through the neighborhood, casting long shadows across the pavement. Each house we passed felt like a sentinel, watching us with silent judgment. I couldn't shake the feeling that we were being observed, that the very walls held their breath, waiting for the truth to unfold. We approached the first house, an old Victorian with peeling paint and a sagging porch. The yard was overgrown, and the windows were clouded with dust, as if time had forgotten this place. Ryan knocked on the door, and we waited, the sound echoing in the stillness. After a moment, a frail woman opened the door, her face lined with age and worry. What do you want? She asked, her voice trembling. Hi, we're friends of Jake. I started, unsure how to proceed. We're trying to find out what happened to him. We heard you might know something about the neighborhood's history. The woman's eyes widened, and she glanced around as if fearing someone might overhear. You shouldn't be asking questions, she whispered, her voice barely audible. It's dangerous. Dangerous how? Ryan pressed, stepping closer. She hesitated, her gaze darting to the street. There are things best left buried. You don't know what you're getting into. Please, I urged, feeling the urgency of our quest. Jake is missing. We need to understand what happened. The woman sighed deeply, her shoulders slumping in defeat. Fine, but you didn't hear it from me. Years ago, there was a love affair between two families. It ended badly and, well, people disappeared. There were whispers of a curse, of revenge. What kind of revenge? Lily asked, her voice barely above a whisper. The woman hesitated, her eyes clouding with memories. Jealousy, anger, turned neighbors against each other. And then, one night, a girl vanished. She was never found. My heart raced as I exchanged glances with Ryan and Lily. This was about a girl? Yes, she replied, her voice shaking. And it all stemmed from a broken promise. People were hurt, and it spiraled out of control. Do you think it could be connected to Jake? Ryan asked, his brow furrowing. The woman's expression hardened. I can't say, but the past has a way of creeping back, of dragging people into its darkness. Just as she finished her sentence, a loud clap of thunder rumbled overhead, causing us to jump. The sky darkened ominously, and rain began to pour, drumming against the roof of the porch. Thank you for your time, I said quickly, sensing the change in the atmosphere. We'll be careful. As we stepped away from the house, the tension hung thick in the air. What was that about? I asked, my voice trembling with the weight of her words. I don't know, but it feels like we're walking on a tightrope, Ryan replied, glancing back at the house. We have to be cautious. We hurried to the next house, a quaint cottage with flower boxes overflowing with wilted blooms. An elderly man opened the door, his expression wary. "What do you want?" he grumbled. "We're looking for information about Jake," I said, desperation creeping into my tone. "We've heard about some family feuds in the neighborhood." The man's eyes narrowed. "You kids need to stay out of things that don't concern you." "But it does concern us," Lily insisted. "Jake is missing, and we think it's connected to the past." His expression softened slightly, but he shook his head. "Those stories are just that, stories. Nothing more. Please," I pressed, feeling a knot of anxiety in my stomach. "We need to know the truth," he sighed, rubbing his temples. "Fine, there was a feud. Started over a girl, a love that went wrong. People got hurt, but it's all in the past. Leave it there. Do you know anything about disappearances?" Ryan asked, his voice steady. "Just the usual. People leaving town, starting fresh elsewhere. Some say it's the curse of this place." "Curse?" I echoed, my curiosity piqued. He nodded grimly. "Yes, a curse tied to that girl who vanished. They say her spirit lingers, seeking revenge on those who wronged her." I felt a chill run down my spine. "And you think that could be happening to Jake?" He shrugged, his gaze distant. "It's possible. People don't like to talk about the past, especially when it involves pain." "Why not?" Lily asked, frustration creeping into her voice. "Because the past has a way of repeating itself," he replied, closing the door without another word. As we walked back, the rain poured relentlessly, drenching us as we moved from house to house. Each encounter felt like a piece of a puzzle falling into place, but the picture remained obscured by shadows. "Do you think we'll ever get to the bottom of this?" I asked, the weight of uncertainty pressing down on me. "I hope so," Ryan said, glancing at me. "But it feels like we're digging into something that wants to stay buried." The storm had been brewing for hours. I could feel the tension in the air, thick and electric, as the wind howled outside. It matched the turmoil inside me, a whirlwind of emotions that left me feeling both anxious and determined. I glanced at Ryan and Lily, who were seated across from me in Jake's dimly lit living room, their faces illuminated by the flickering light of a single candle. The shadows danced around us, creating an atmosphere that felt both intimate and foreboding. "I can't believe we're doing this," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. My heart raced as I thought about confronting Ethan. Everything about him made me uneasy. He had been lurking on the fringes of our investigation, and now it felt like he was about to plunge us into a deeper mystery. "Someone has to get to the bottom of this," Ryan replied, his brow furrowed with worry. "If Jake knew something, if he was about to expose something important, we can't just sit here and do nothing." I nodded, trying to muster confidence. "Right, but we need to be careful. We don't know what we're walking into." Lily shifted in her seat, her eyes darting to the window as another gust of wind rattled the glass. "What if he's not telling the truth? What if he's involved somehow?" The doubt in her voice echoed my own concerns. "That's why we're going to confront him together," I said, trying to reassure both of them and myself. "We stick to the facts. We ask him what he knows about Jake. We can't let our emotions cloud our judgment." As I spoke, I felt the weight of Jake's absence pressing down on me. It was almost suffocating. He had been my rock, my confidant. The thought of him being in danger, or worse, made my stomach churn. I took a deep breath, steeling myself for what was to come. Just then, the lights flickered, casting eerie shadows across the room. It seemed like a sign that the storm outside was only going to intensify. The power flickered again before finally giving out, plunging us into darkness. "Great," Ryan muttered, fumbling for his phone to use as a flashlight. "Just what we need." "Let's go," I urged, rising to my feet. The fear gnawed at me, but it was mixed with a sense of urgency. We had to find Ethan. We had to know what he knew. We stepped outside into the storm, rain pelting against our faces as we hurried down the street toward the old playground where Ethan had told Lily to meet him. The wind whipped around us, making it hard to hear anything other than the roar of the storm. "Are you sure he'll be there?" Lily shouted over the wind, her voice strained with uncertainty. He said he would be, I replied, my heart pounding. We have to trust him, for now. As we reached the playground, the swings creaked ominously in the wind, and the rain blurred my vision. I felt a shiver run down my spine as I glanced around, half expecting to see Jake's shadow lurking in the corners, watching over us. Ethan, Lily called out, her voice trembling slightly. Are you here? A moment later, a figure stepped out from behind the slide, his silhouette barely visible in the dim light. It was Ethan, his expression serious as he approached us. I'm glad you came, he said, his voice low and intense. He looked at each of us, and I felt a flicker of distrust in my gut. We don't have much time. They're watching. Who's watching? I snapped, crossing my arms defensively. You need to be clear with us, Ethan. What do you know about Jake? He hesitated, glancing around as if expecting someone to jump out from the shadows. I can't say too much here. Just trust me, you're in danger. Jake found something out. Something that points to a dark history in this neighborhood. A dark history? Ryan echoed, his skepticism evident. What are you talking about? Ethan looked back at the playground, his brow furrowed. There's a reason why people in this town keep secrets. Jake was getting too close to the truth. He had this idea that something terrible happened here, and that it's all connected. I didn't want him to dig deeper, but he wouldn't listen. What do you mean, connected? I pressed, feeling a surge of frustration. Connected to what? To whom? Everything, he replied, his voice dropping to a whisper. The disappearances, the families, the rivalries. It all ties back to a betrayal that happened years ago. I can't tell you everything, but I know Jake was about to expose it. My heart raced, and I felt a mix of anger and fear. So you knew? You knew something was going to happen to him? Why didn't you come to us? Ethan stepped closer, his gaze piercing. Because I didn't think he'd actually go through with it. He was reckless, and I was trying to protect him. Protect all of you. Protect us. Ryan scoffed, taking a step back. You've been lurking around, trying to play both sides. Why should we trust you now? Because I'm the only one who knows what's really going on. Ethan shot back, frustration creeping into his voice. You think this is just about Jake? It's bigger than that. If you don't understand the history, you won't grasp the danger you're in. Then explain it to us, I demanded, feeling the weight of the storm pressing down on us. If you have information, tell us. We're not leaving until we know the truth. Ethan sighed heavily, looking between us as if weighing his options. Fine, but you have to promise me to keep this between us for now. If the wrong people find out I spoke to you. He trailed off, leaving the implication hanging in the air. Just tell us, I urged, desperation creeping into my voice. There's a legend about this neighborhood, he began, his tone shifting to a more serious note. Years ago, two families had a major falling out. It all started with a love affair that went wrong, one that ended in tragedy. People say that the ghosts of that betrayal haunt this place. And ever since, there's been a pattern of disappearances, people who get too close to the truth. I felt a chill run down my spine. Are you saying Jake might be one of those people? Ethan nodded slowly. He was getting too close. I warned him, but he didn't listen. He thought he could handle it, thought he could bring everything to light. I guess he thought he was invincible. Do you know where he is? Lily asked, her voice trembling. Is he in danger? I don't know, Ethan admitted, his expression grave. But if he found something, he might be hiding. Or worse. A loud crack of thunder interrupted us, and I instinctively moved closer to Ryan and Lily. The fear was palpable, and I could see it mirrored in their eyes. What do we do now? Ryan asked, his voice barely audible over the downpour. We need to find him, I said, my determination solidifying. We can't let his search for the truth end in vain. We need to uncover what he discovered before it's too late. Ethan nodded, his expression shifting from uncertainty to resolve. I can help you. I know the places he would go, the people he might have talked to. Let's move then, I said, feeling the urgency pulsing through me. Every minute we wasted could be a minute too late for Jake. As we started to leave the playground, I couldn't shake the feeling that we were being watched. The shadows seemed to follow us, whispering secrets I was not yet ready to hear. "Just stick together," I said, looking at Ryan and Lily. "No matter what happens, we stay united. We can't let fear drive us apart." "Right," Ryan agreed, though I could see the doubt lingering in his eyes. "I'll follow your lead," Lily added, her voice steadying. As we made our way out of the playground, the storm continued to rage around us. Thunder roared in the distance, but I felt a flicker of hope amidst the chaos. We were on a mission to find Jake, and I wouldn't stop until we uncovered the truth. I just hoped we wouldn't uncover too many secrets along the way. The storm outside rumbled ominously, sending a shiver down my spine. I could hear the wind howling through the trees, shaking the very foundation of the house we were in. But inside, the tension was palpable, thick enough to cut with a knife. Ryan, Lily, and I were huddled in Jake's living room, trying to make sense of everything that had happened since his disappearance. The flickering candlelight cast eerie shadows on the walls, mirroring the turmoil in our hearts. "Did you find anything else in that box?" Ryan asked, his voice strained as he rubbed the back of his neck, clearly feeling the weight of our situation. I glanced at the scattered items in front of us. Photographs, old letters, and a few trinkets that once belonged to Jake. "Just these letters," I replied, pulling out a folded piece of paper. "They're personal." I hesitated, feeling a mix of curiosity and dread. I knew I had to share what I found, but some part of me wanted to keep it buried, just like the secrets that seemed to haunt this place. "Personal how?" Lily asked, leaning closer, her eyes wide with interest. I had to remind myself that we were in this together, despite the growing distance between us. She had been spending more time with Ethan, and I felt the rift widening every day. "They're love letters," I finally said, my voice barely above a whisper. I could see their expressions shift, confusion mingling with surprise. "It looks like Jake had a crush on someone from the neighborhood." "Who?" Ryan pressed, his brow furrowing as he shifted in his seat. I could tell he was struggling with the idea of Jake having feelings for anyone while we were also engrossed in finding him. "I don't know yet," I replied, flipping through the letters, trying to find a name. "But this one mentions someone named Mia. He wrote about how he felt invisible around her, how he wished he could tell her how he truly felt." Lily's eyes sparkled with intrigue. "Mia? Do you think she could be connected to his disappearance?" "I don't know," I said, shaking my head, "but it feels like everything is connected somehow. The diary, the stories from the neighbors, it's all intertwined." Ryan leaned back, crossing his arms. "And what about Ethan? Do we trust him? He seems to know more than he's letting on, and it's not like we have a good track record with secrets around here." I felt a pang of frustration at the mention of Ethan. "I don't know, Ryan. Lily seems to think he can help us, but I can't shake the feeling that he's hiding something. What if he's involved in all of this?" "Come on, Sarah," Lily interjected, her voice rising slightly. "You can't seriously think that. He's been nothing but helpful. If it weren't for him, I wouldn't have even known about the connection between Jake and the old stories." "Helpful?" Ryan scoffed, rubbing his temples as if trying to ease the tension. "Or maybe he's just playing us. We don't know what he really wants." I felt the air grow thick with unspoken words, a storm of emotions brewing as we sat in that dimly lit room. The shadows continued to dance around us, just like the memories of Jake that haunted my thoughts. "We can't let this divide us," I finally said, my voice steady despite the turmoil inside. "We need to stay focused. We owe it to Jake to find out what happened to him." Lily nodded slowly, but I could see the uncertainty in her eyes. "You're right, but what if the truth is more dangerous than we think? What if it's something that could hurt us?" I took a deep breath, trying to steady my own racing heart. "We can't live in fear, Lily. We have to confront whatever is out there. If we don't, we might never know the truth." "Fine," Ryan sighed, leaning forward. "But we need to be smart about this. We should go back to the neighbors. There's got to be someone who knows something more than what we've heard so far." Do you really think they'll talk to us now? Lily challenged. After everything that's happened? Maybe if we approach them the right way, I suggested. We can tell them we're looking for Jake and that we found some things that concern us. They might feel more inclined to help if they know we're serious. The storm raged on outside, the wind howling as if it were echoing our inner turmoil. It was as if the world around us was mirroring the chaos in our hearts. I felt a sudden urge to press on, to dig deeper into the history that had brought us to this point. Let's think about it, I proposed. If we can find Mia, maybe she can shed some light on Jake's feelings, and maybe she knows something about his disappearance. All right, Ryan agreed reluctantly, but we need to be careful. I don't want any more secrets tearing us apart. Lily glanced at me, her expression softening. I just want to help Jake. I don't want to lose you both in the process. I nodded, grateful for her sincerity. We won't lose each other. We'll get through this together. As we sat there, the atmosphere shifted slightly, the weight of our shared determination bringing us closer. Yet, in the back of my mind, I could still feel the presence of Jake, his shadow flitting across my thoughts. What was he trying to tell us? Why had he disappeared? I picked up the love letters again, tracing the words with my fingers. If this love for Mia was so strong, what if it played a role in his disappearance? What if it was tied to the rivalries in the neighborhood? Ryan's expression darkened. You think someone hurt him because of it? That's a dangerous assumption. Maybe not hurt, but scared him away, I suggested. If there were old grudges or secrets, it could have made him feel threatened. If he was planning to confront someone, maybe that's why he vanished. Lily frowned, her brows knitting together. But what if he was hiding for another reason? Maybe he found out something about his family or the neighbors that he didn't want us to know. The thought sent a chill down my spine. What if Jake had uncovered something so dark that he felt he had no choice but to run? My mind raced with possibilities, each more sinister than the last. Whatever happened, we need to find the truth, I insisted. And that means tracking down Mia. We can't let fear dictate our actions. We have to face whatever happened, even if it's painful. Ryan glanced at Lily, who nodded in agreement. All right, let's do it. We'll find Mia and see what she knows. But we need to be prepared for anything. This could get messy. As we gathered our things, I felt a surge of determination. We were going to uncover the truth, no matter how deep we had to dig. Jake deserved that much. He deserved to have his story heard, to have his secrets laid bare. The night was still young, and the storm continued to rage outside. But now I felt a flicker of hope amidst the chaos. Together, we would unravel the threads of the past, no matter how tangled they might be. And maybe, just maybe, we would find Jake along the way. I felt a strange sense of urgency as I sat at my desk, the dim light of my desk lamp illuminating the pages of the old diary I had found in Jake's house. Each entry felt like a thread pulling me deeper into a web of secrets and shadows. I flipped through the fragile pages, the musty scent of aged paper filling my nostrils, reminding me of the weight of the past that loomed over our community. The stories written there were like whispers from another time, echoing through the ages, intertwined with the lives of those who lived here before us. Sarah, are you okay? Ryan's voice broke through my thoughts, pulling me back to the present. He stood at the doorway, concern etched on his face. I could see the worry in his eyes, and I knew he felt the pressure of our search weighing heavily on him as well. I'm fine, just reading more about the history of this place. I responded, trying to sound more composed than I felt. You wouldn't believe the stuff I found. There's so much about the neighbors and their old rivalries. It's all connected to Jake. Ryan stepped inside, leaning against the doorframe. Connected how? What do you mean? I took a deep breath, gathering my thoughts. There are stories here, Ryan. Stories of betrayal and heartbreak. It's like the past is repeating itself. I think it goes way back, farther than we ever realized. Like what? What did you find? He pressed, his curiosity piqued. I flipped back to an entry that had caught my eye earlier. Listen to this, I said, reading aloud. The Masons and the Thompsons have always been at odds. It started with a love affair that tore the families apart. The pain of betrayal still lingers, and their children are caught in the crossfire. Ryan furrowed his brow. That's intense. Do you think Jake knew about this? I think he must have, I replied, feeling a knot tighten in my stomach. And I think he was close to uncovering something big, something that could change everything. As I spoke, an idea began to form in my mind. We need to look at the records of this neighborhood. If there's a pattern of disappearances or violence tied to these families, it could give us the clues we need to find Jake. Ryan nodded, determination flashing in his eyes. Let's do it. But where do we even start? I thought for a moment, recalling the small town hall where old records were kept. There are archives at the town hall. We can start there. They should have information about the families that lived here before us and any incidents that might have happened. Ryan glanced at the clock on my wall. Let's go now. The sooner we find this stuff, the better. With a shared sense of purpose, we made our way to the town hall, the crisp evening air filling our lungs as we stepped outside. As we walked, my mind raced with the possibilities. What if the past held the answers to Jake's disappearance? What if the secrets of our families were more intertwined than we ever imagined? When we arrived at the town hall, the building loomed before us, old and imposing, with its stone facade and heavy wooden doors. Inside, the air was cool and musty, the faint scent of old paper and ink hanging in the atmosphere. An elderly woman sat behind the front desk, peering over her glasses at us. "Can I help you?" she asked, her voice tinged with suspicion. "We're looking for old records, anything about the families in this neighborhood, especially regarding disappearances or conflicts." I explained, trying to sound confident despite the flutter of nerves in my stomach. She raised an eyebrow, but after a moment, she sighed and gestured for us to follow. "You'll want to check the archives on the second floor. There's a lot of history to sift through." "Thank you," Ryan said, and we made our way up the creaky staircase. The second floor was dimly lit, with rows of shelves filled with dusty boxes and stacks of yellowing papers. It felt like stepping into a time capsule. "Where do we start?" Ryan asked, glancing around. "Let's look for anything related to the families mentioned in the diary," I suggested, grabbing a box labeled Mason Family Records. I opened it, my heart racing as I began to sift through the contents. As I flipped through the papers, I came across old letters and photographs. One photograph caught my eye, a group of people standing in front of a house. The faces were familiar. I recognized some of the older neighbors, but there was one face that sent a chill down my spine. The boy who looked eerily similar to Ethan, the mysterious guy Lily was so taken with. "Ryan, look at this." I called him over, holding up the photograph. "Do you see him? This is the guy Lily's been talking to, Ethan." Ryan took the photo and examined it closely. "That's strange. What's he doing in a photo with the Masons? And why haven't we ever heard about this before?" "I don't know," I admitted, feeling the weight of the mystery deepening. "But it makes me wonder what other secrets they're hiding." We continued our search, uncovering more records. As we dug through the papers, I found an entry in a town log that detailed a series of strange occurrences in the neighborhood, disappearances that coincided with the rivalries between the families. "Look at this," I said, excitement bubbling up inside me. There were 3 disappearances over the last 60 years, all linked to the same families, and they happened around the same time as major conflicts. Ryan leaned closer, reading the entry. "This is huge, Sarah. If we can connect these events to Jake's disappearance, it could lead us to the truth." My heart raced as I processed the implications. We need to find out what these conflicts were about. If there's a pattern, then maybe Jake stumbled onto something he shouldn't have. Just then, I felt a chill in the air, and I turned to look out the window. The sky was darkening, clouds rolling in as a storm threatened to break overhead. I shivered, not from the cold, but from a sense of foreboding that washed over me. "Let's keep going," I urged, pushing the unsettling feeling aside. "We can't leave until we find something concrete." Ryan nodded, and we pressed on, diving deeper into the boxes. Hours passed, and the storm outside intensified. Thunder rumbled in the distance, and I could hear the rain beginning to fall heavily against the windows. "Sarah, look at this," Ryan said suddenly, pulling out a folder filled with newspaper clippings. "These articles talk about a feud between the Masons and the Thompsons. They mention a betrayal that led to a tragedy, a drowning in the river." I scanned the headlines, my heart racing. What if this drowning was connected to Jake? What if he was getting too close to the truth about what happened back then? Ryan frowned, deep in thought. "This could be it, Sarah. We need to talk to the neighbors. Maybe they can shed some light on what really happened." As we gathered our findings, the storm outside reached its peak, the wind howling and the rain lashing against the building. I felt a sense of urgency, as if time were slipping away from us. "Let's hurry," I said, glancing at the clock. "We have to get back before it gets too late." We raced down the stairs, the echoes of our footsteps reverberating in the empty halls of the town hall as we made our way back to the entrance. Once outside, we were greeted by a downpour, the rain soaking us instantly as we dashed toward my car. "Where to first?" Ryan shouted over the sound of the rain pounding against the roof of the car. I thought for a moment, considering our options. "Let's start with Mrs. Thompson. She's been here forever and knows the history of this neighborhood better than anyone." We drove through the rain-soaked streets, the headlights illuminating the darkness as we navigated the familiar route to Mrs. Thompson's house. I could feel the weight of our findings pressing down on me, a mix of excitement and fear swirling inside. When we arrived, I knocked on the door, my heart racing as I waited for her to answer. After a moment, the door creaked open, revealing Mrs. Thompson, her hair a wild mess and her eyes wide with surprise. "Sarah? Ryan, what brings you here in this weather?" she asked, her voice a mix of concern and curiosity. "We need to talk to you about the Masons," I replied, trying to keep my voice steady. "It's important." She glanced behind her, as if checking for something before stepping aside. "Come in quickly. You'll catch your death out there." As we entered her cozy living room, I could see the warmth of the fire crackling in the fireplace, a stark contrast to the storm raging outside. Mrs. Thompson settled into an armchair while Ryan and I took seats across from her. "What's this about the Masons?" she asked, her expression turning serious. I exchanged a glance with Ryan before diving in. "We found some old records that mention a feud between your families, and there were disappearances linked to it. We think it might have something to do with Jake's disappearance." Mrs. Thompson's face paled, and for a moment, I thought she might refuse to speak. But then she sighed deeply, her eyes clouding with memories. "That feud, it was a dark time for both families. There was a lot of anger and resentment, and it all I stood in front of Jake's mother, my heart pounding in my chest like a drum, each beat echoing the weight of the revelations I had just uncovered. The dim light of the living room illuminated her face, but it didn't soften the lines of worry etched into her features. I could see the pain hidden behind her eyes, a pain that mirrored my own. I had come here seeking answers, but I hadn't expected the truth to cut so deep. "Sarah," she began, her voice trembling slightly, "you need to understand that what you're looking for, it's not just about Jake. It involves all of us." "What do you mean?" I pressed, trying to keep my voice steady. "What happened to him? Why did he disappear?" She took a deep breath, and I could see the conflict churning within her. Jake knew something about our past. He was about to expose the secrets that have kept this community together for so long. But those secrets, they're dangerous. "Dangerous how?" I asked, my curiosity piqued, even as dread settled in my stomach. "Years ago, there was a betrayal," she said, her voice dropping to barely a whisper. "It involved my family and Ethan's. It's a story that has haunted us ever since." She paused, as if gathering her thoughts. "Jake discovered letters, love letters, hidden in the attic. They were between his father and Ethan's mother." I felt a chill run down my spine. "So it's true? The love that was never meant to be," I murmured, recalling the old woman's words about unrequited love and tragic endings. "Yes," she said, her eyes welling with tears. "When those letters were found, it tore the families apart. Rivalries were born, and the truth became a weapon. We've spent years burying it, but Jake, he wanted to bring it back to light. He thought it was time for the truth to finally come out. Why didn't you tell him to stop? I asked, anger bubbling beneath the surface. Why let him walk into danger? Because I wanted him to know, she replied, her voice breaking. I wanted him to be brave enough to face the truth. I didn't realize how deeply it would affect him, or how afraid everyone else would be. Afraid of what? I pressed, desperate for clarity. What would happen if he exposed it? She looked away, her gaze fixated on the shadows dancing against the wall. It could destroy lives, Sarah. Could destroy our families. The guilt, the blame, it would all come crashing down. Some people would go to great lengths to protect their secrets. The weight of her words hung in the air like a fog. So, you're saying Jake hid? He's not gone? I felt hope flicker inside me, but it was quickly snuffed out by the gravity of the situation. No, he's not gone, she said softly, but her tone was heavy with sorrow. He's hiding to protect you, to protect all of you. But why? I asked, confusion swirling in my mind. Why would he do that? What could be so terrible that he'd choose to disappear instead of facing it? Because he loved you, she replied, her voice barely above a whisper. He didn't want you to be dragged into this mess. He thought if he removed himself from the equation, you'd all be safe. I shook my head, disbelief coursing through me. But that's wrong. We could have helped him. We could have faced it together. Sometimes, love makes you do foolish things, she said, tears rolling down her cheeks. You think you're protecting someone, but in reality, you're only making it worse. Just then, the room seemed to darken, and a chill swept through the air. I turned, expecting to see something sinister lurking in the shadows, but it was just a flicker of the lights. Yet, I felt a presence, an energy that pulled me back to the moment I had seen Jake's shadow in the window, the way it had sent shivers down my spine. Jake! I called out suddenly, my voice echoing in the silence. If you can hear me, you need to come back. We can help you. You don't have to do this alone. The air stilled, and for a moment, I thought I saw a flicker of movement in the corner of my eye. Sarah? His voice whispered, soft but clear. You need to find the truth. I spun around, my heart racing. Jake? Is that you? I called, searching the room for any sign of him. Sarah. His voice was a haunting melody, echoing from somewhere beyond the shadows. You're close, but you need to confront the past. Confront the past? I echoed, confusion flooding my mind. What does that mean? I can't tell you everything, he said, his voice fading like a distant echo. But you have to dig deeper. The truth is buried, but it will set us free. Jake, wait! I shouted, but the presence was gone, leaving only the heavy silence of the room. I turned back to his mother, who looked at me with a mix of fear and hope. He's trying to tell us something, I said, my voice firm. If he's hiding, it means he believes there's still a chance to make things right. We can't let fear dictate our lives anymore. She nodded slowly, a spark of determination igniting in her eyes. You're right. We need to help him. We need to confront our past together. I took a deep breath, feeling a renewed sense of purpose. Then let's start digging. We can't let Jake's sacrifice be in vain. We need to expose the truth, no matter how painful it might be. Hours passed as we began piecing together the fragments of stories, the hidden letters, and whispered conversations that had haunted the neighborhood for decades. With each revelation, the web of deceit unspooled, revealing the tangled history that connected our families. I could feel Jake's presence guiding us, urging us to keep going. As twilight settled outside, I found myself in the living room again, surrounded by the remnants of our investigation. The walls felt alive with the energy of the past, and I knew we were on the brink of something monumental. Sarah, his mother said, breaking the silence, I need to tell you something else. There's one last secret that could change everything. What is it? I asked, my heart racing. There's a reason Jake and Ethan were so close, and it goes beyond friendship," she revealed, her voice trembling. "Ethan is a distant relative, and their families share a history that ties back to that betrayal." "What?" I gasped, struggling to process the information. "You can't be serious." "It's true," she insisted, her gaze unwavering. "Jake was trying to reconcile not just the past between our families, but also the connection he had with Ethan. He thought that by bridging that gap, he could heal the wounds that have festered for so long. Then we need to find Ethan," I declared, a sense of urgency washing over me. "If Jake is hiding to protect us, then Ethan might be the key to bringing him back." "Agreed," she said, determination etched on her face. "But we have to be careful. The community is still afraid, and some will do anything to keep the truth buried." As night fell, I felt a strange mixture of fear and excitement. I was ready to face whatever lay ahead, ready to unravel the secrets that had haunted us for too long. But as I left the house, I couldn't shake the feeling that we were being watched. The streets were quiet, the only sounds the rustling of leaves and the distant hum of night creatures. I felt a shiver run down my spine. It was as if the past was closing in around me, and I had to push forward to illuminate the darkness that had shrouded our lives for far too long. I took a deep breath and turned the corner toward Ethan's house. My heart raced with anticipation. I could feel Jake's presence beside me, guiding me, urging me to confront the truth. When I arrived, I knocked on the door, the sound echoing in the stillness of the night. Moments later, Ethan opened the door, his eyes wide with surprise. "Sarah?" he exclaimed. "What are you doing here?" "I need to talk to you," I said, my voice steady. "About Jake. We need to understand what's happening before it's too late." He hesitated for a moment, then stepped aside, allowing me to enter. "Come in." As I crossed the threshold, I felt the weight of the world on my shoulders, but I also felt a glimmer of hope. I was ready to face the truth, whatever it may be, and this time I wouldn't let fear dictate my choices. Together, we would uncover the secrets that bound us and finally bring Jake back into the light.